Nothing's going on them, so I don't need them. Okay, so Live Darts Iceland, where we like to bring you darts all around the world. Today we're in sunny Las Vegas, Nevada. Sunny? I mean, are you used to the sunny weather, DJ Sayre?
This time of year I am, but normally I come from a place that has 4 seasons, so we go from 30 degrees to 80 degrees to 40 degrees in a matter of a week. But this week is pretty good for weather.
Where are you living now?
Ohio, in the U.S.
Okay, Ohio. So on the sort of the east. Did you call it the east?
I think we're actually classified as Midwest. We get a lot of the lake effect because we have we're surrounded by the Great Lakes to our north. So we certainly get some crazy weather where I am. But this time of year is our summer, so we do all right.
Well, in Iceland, where this is going out from, as they've got all sorts of seasons as well. In every 5 minutes, the weather's changing. I'd say it's probably a little bit more sturdy, wouldn't you, in Ohio?
I mean, every 5 minutes, sure, but yeah, our weather changes rapidly. Honestly, like a lot of the memes that go around are directed towards Ohio weather. Like we're probably the worst for changing.
Fantastic. Well, we're here today to talk about darts. I'm joined by DJ Sayre in Las Vegas. First question I've got is some people might have had a look on Dart Connect. It would say Dennis Sayre, but you prefer DJ. Any reason why, or just a little bit cooler?
Honestly, it was a nickname I was given by my family when I was a kid because I am a Dennis Jr., so everyone calling my dad Dennis, I think it was just natural that I became DJ. So that's what I've always been. It's honestly kind of weird when I hear someone that I know well call me Dennis. Like I once had my brother introduce me as Dennis, and instantly my head snaps up and I was like, "What did you say?" Because he's never called me Dennis as far as I was aware. So yeah, it's DJ. That's what I prefer.
Absolutely. You qualified to the US Darts, what do they call it now?
Masters.
That's it, US Darts Masters, I know what I'm talking about, apparently, last year. Let's talk about last year really quickly. Expectations going into qualifying. What were you thinking?
So coming into the weekend, I mean, that was the first big one for the US for anything on this magnitude. I don't know. I certainly felt I was capable of getting in. In fact, I had even kind of made the statement that it'll be my going away party or my coming out party, because if I kind of felt like if I didn't qualify, it was a letdown and maybe I shouldn't be putting as much time as I do into the game. But I did manage to get through on Order of Merit. I think I finished second on the Order of Merit. But the experience on the stage, I mean, I was a bag of nerves the entire time, pretty much both matches. I did get a little more settled the second day, but yeah, it was an experience for sure. The nerves were crazy. And
I bet it was like nothing you've experienced before.
No, especially not in the game of darts. I mean, I've played in some big events, the World Masters and whatnot, but never to that level. To have the hometown crowd, I absolutely love the support. It's great to hear your name. However, you're now playing for a lot of people, not just yourself. I would almost rather be on the away turf and not have everyone cheering for me, because I don't feel like I'm letting people down right behind me. So I don't know. It's just it's a different animal on that stage.
So prior to obviously last year's event, what sort of crowds were you playing in sort of in the biggest capacity? Not necessarily by number, but by experience, by atmosphere. What sort of was going on in the crowds?
So in the U.S., we don't get a lot of crowds, to be honest. I mean, we have the CDC tour. It's been going on for, I think, 3 or 4 years now. And even there, it's so hard because a lot of times it's mainly only players in attendance, or maybe players and players' wives or family. Rarely do you get just fans showing up to support the event in America. So it's usually, maybe 20, 30 people sticking around to watch the final or something like that. Maybe Darts Live events with the soft tip side. I've played on stage there and had, a couple hundred rooting, but never to the size or capacity of what's here.
What have you played the darts live in Las Vegas?
Yes.
Yeah. What would you say the crowd is like there in compared to your CDC things and other general larger tournaments?
Darts Live is much bigger than any of the CDCs or anything like that. It's kind of, the CDCs it can't really be compared to the stage events from the PDC, just because it's more of like a floor event. Like we don't really have that big staged event. It's more so like the players are playing on the floor for the PDC. So there's not really much cheering or anything. There might be some spectators, but there's no real loud cheering or anything allowed. I mean, they kind of turn the music on softly, but it's nothing to have the crowd a ruckus or anything.
Why darts? That's a question for you. Why? What is it about darts? We'll go on to darts in America in a bit, because obviously there's progression, certainly, due to this event, due to other sort of events. For you, darts, how did you get into it? Why darts?
So I first picked up darts when I was about 12 years old. My parents actually joined a local soft tip league, and I'm the youngest of 4 boys, and we were always super competitive. So naturally, when my parents joined a dart league, they went out and bought a soft tip dartboard, hung it in the garage, and before I know it, like, me and the brothers were playing pretty regularly, competing against each other. And it actually, I mean, like I said, I was 12, and I wasn't the most avid or natural player at the beginning, but as the years went on, I certainly I fell in love with it. I got to be about 16 or 17. I was playing most days, and I kind of made the commitment that I'm either going to get better or stop, because I absolutely hate playing anything that I suck at, other than maybe golf. Like I'll do terrible in golf and still go, but
I think being American, you have to sort of be involved in golf, or at least like golf.
Yeah, there's something to that. I mean, but it's just one of those things. Like if I'm absolutely terrible at something, the competitive spirit won't allow me to continue to play it. So, darts for me was something that I was pretty keen at, and that I could play pretty regularly, even at a young age. I was allowed to actually go into the pubs and play in the tournaments and stuff like that. So,
obviously, you'd only know what it's like to be a darts player in America, but would you imagine that it'd be a little bit more difficult for you being American, where darts hasn't necessarily progressed so rapidly as it might have done in, let's say, Europe, in regards to opportunities and stuff? Would you say that's maybe a little bit more difficult than if you were, European?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of twofold. Like, do I think if darts was more popular in America, that I would have more opportunity? Absolutely. But at the same time, if darts was more popular, there'd be a lot more players, and that, kind of liquefying the field, it's going to force you to, again, get better or, stop playing. So I absolutely believe that my competitive drive would take over and I would get better. But yeah, I mean, we're certainly at a disadvantage being in America, just because it's kind of like, I compare it to other things, if you will. If you want to be on Broadway, you go to New York. If you want to be in show business, you go to LA. If you want to be in NASCAR, you go to North Carolina. For darts, if you want to be a professional dart player, you go to Europe. Like, that's just the way it is. And us being in America, that's a tough ask. Like, I commend Dawson Michelle for doing it last year. I mean, he had a good run here, and then he uprooted his entire self. I mean, he's a young man, he can do it, but it takes a lot of cojones to actually pull the trigger on that, and I respect that.
Yeah, to be full-time professional, to play in every single event, mainly in Europe, it takes a little bit of doing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think if you're, and I've actually had an offer to maybe give it a real go this coming year, go to Q school and stuff like that, and it's still something I'm gonna mull over, but it's a heck of a commitment to actually uproot your entire livelihood and everything, and move to a foreign country where, I mean, the earliest way you can get home is an 8-hour flight. So I don't know. That makes it pretty tough. I think you have to have the right support system, if you will. Like I think Dawson has a great family and stuff like that, and it's made it easy for him. But for most Americans, especially dart players, there's very few that are actually competitive at the highest level at that young of an age. So most of them are established with careers and families and whatnot, and it's just not feasible to make the move that far.
It's going to sound a bit of a weird question, but if you could guarantee that, not necessarily guarantee, but be in the big events in Europe, play well, play at the top of your game week in, week out, obviously there's a lot of money involved, but would you do it with a click of a finger, or would it be something you'd have to think about? Just because obviously you've mentioned the massive commitment involved, and you'd have to not necessarily leave your life behind, but certainly change massive elements of your life in order to accommodate the darts. If you could have it as a full-time career, is that something you would do?
Certainly, the gut instinct. If you're asking me for a snap decision, if I can be top 10 in the world, a Premier League player, and having to play 40 to 45 weekends a year like those guys have to, I would certainly make that commitment. But with that, because of what Barry Hearn and the PDC is doing, comes a great living, and that's where you get to the point that you can have your wife travel with you and whatnot. Because, my wife actually has a really good career. It would be very selfish of me right now to be a starting dart player, a professional dart player, and ask her to give up her career, if you will. So, but yeah, if I knew that I would be, Premier League type player and be able to earn the type of living that those guys earn, to where I can afford to bring the wife with me all the time and stuff, it'd be a no-brainer.
Let's talk the present. So you walked into Mandalay Bay a couple of days ago in attempt to qualify for the US Championship. What were your expectations, and did you feel any added-on pressure because you'd obviously qualified the year before, or did you actually feel a little bit less pressure because you've shown that you can do it? What's the worst that could happen, sort of thing?
So answering that in reverse, as far as the pressure goes, I would say that you come in with a little more pressure. However, you come in with a little more experience, so they kind of balance each other out. Yeah. But what was the first part? I'm sorry. But coming into it, my expectation, that's what it was. I certainly expected to be one of the 8. I think last year I believed I was going to be one of the 8, and this year I did expect it. I know that with the draw system, you can always have a couple of bad draws, but I don't know. I've been pretty consistent over the last 3 or 4 years as being one of the top finishers in most all long format 501 events. Rarely do I finish outside the quarterfinals in any of the CDC events and stuff. So I absolutely felt like I should qualify, and anything less than qualifying was a disappointment.
So you say obviously you're used to the quarterfinals within the CDC thing. Was this, when you're playing darts, is it dependent on the tournament? I can say that correctly. Does it depend on the tournament, as in the amount of pressure that you're feeling, or was this when you came into it the other day, it was just another game of darts, and whatever happened? Because there is a crowd, and there's some things that I've got to get to, but at the same time, it is the same game, and the rules are exactly the same.
So I don't think that I'm at a point in my darting career with enough experience to just view every game as a game. Clearly, Gary Anderson can with what he did to me yesterday, but no, it's certainly different. If I play a local event, it is just another game of darts. And then when I go to, say, a CDC event, it's a slightly more pressure, and I feel the need to perform for my sponsors, but for the commitment that I've made. To travel, jump in a car and drive 7.5 hours to go to an event, I certainly feel a responsibility to do well. And then coming here, it's a different animal, but I was actually very pleased with the way I was able to handle the nerves this year, because I was more nervous last year, but I think that just comes with experience. But I was still nervous this year. I felt the hand shaking a little bit and stuff, but if you can feel the shake, recognize it and play through it and play well, you're doing all right. Eventually the shake will go away, I think.
What did you feel in your mind the differences were between the general, not necessarily the quality of the opponent, but the general atmosphere regarding your game against Dawson Michelle and your game against Gary Anderson? Because it's the same stage, it's the same venue. The crowd, probably a little bit bigger for the Anderson game, but it's still a big crowd and pretty loud at the important times. What was in your mind the differences?
So it's odd. The crowd being quite a bit American and Canadian for the Dawson match, it felt like. I certainly heard my supporters get the DJ Sayre chants going and stuff, but usually as soon as that happened, the Dawson supporters kind of came right back with their support. So it really balanced itself out, and we were just putting on a show. I felt like we both played pretty well. The scoring was there. He kicked off with a 180 the very first shot, if I remember correctly. And then he went 5 for 5 on doubles to open. And I'm sitting there with, I believe, a 107 average after 5 legs, and I'm down 4-1. All right, if this is what it's going to be, this is what it's going to be. But then to the Gary match, The venue's set up a little different this year than it was last year. Last year, the Red Eye Rhino ticket sales were kind of in the middle crowd stage, whereas this year the European fans were directly in the middle, so they're a little more right on top of you. And there was definitely some Gary Anderson support going on. And don't get me wrong, he earned every right of like them supporting him. I mean, he put on a show, and it was actually great to watch, I'm sure. But the crowd definitely got going for Gary at one point, and I wasn't expecting that. Like I felt like I didn't realize how many European fans there were. I thought the American crowd would pull through, and maybe he would feel that pressure. But he opened up so well that they had no choice. You have to support that. I mean, when a man's on a 9-darter, stuff like that, like he's entertaining, and you have to respect that.
And he's cool as a cucumber as well, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I've actually seen Gary complain a couple of times when like somebody doesn't step off all the way. So like I made sure that I did that because I didn't want him to I didn't want him to bash me around the board, but at the same time, like I don't want to do anything to affect this man putting on this show, because at some point it just felt like he was pretty surreal up there.
Can't be easy as well with a man who's got one of the most notorious chants in the BDC, Gary Anderson. That must have not necessarily gotten to here, but I'm sure you enjoyed the experience.
Absolutely. I certainly enjoyed this year more than last year because I felt like I gave a little better representation of who I am as a dart player. But more than that, I think I was able to kind of appreciate the surrounding and everything. Last year I put a lot of pressure on myself, as weird as that is, just to do well, because it was the first time like you have to put on a good show and stuff. And this time I kind of went out there, just let them fly, and knew that I was playing well. I think I had a bit more confidence this year coming in as well. So I just kind of let the darts speak for themselves, and barring probably 4 legs over the 2 matches, I felt like I played very well.
Yeah, absolutely. Your future in the sport, what are your immediate thoughts as of sort of now? Because obviously I know you're going to have to sit down and think, where is this going to go? What am I going to do? Do I give it a shot? But what's your general thoughts for what you can do and maybe what you will do?
So I guess the what I can do is I truly believe that with the right experience and, playing against the guys that average 112 pretty consistently, I will improve. Like I certainly think that I can get to a level that is competitive in the PDC tour, but can I do that right now? That's a decision I still have to think about. I keep going back to the family thing and stuff, just having to uproot. I know I've heard stories of certain PDC players like Kyle Anderson coming from Australia and being away from his wife and kids for 6 months at a time. I know that I can't do that. I can sit here right now and tell you that there's no way I can be away from my wife for 6 months. How military families and stuff like that deal with that, I have the utmost respect. There's no way that I can do that as an individual. But maybe a month or 2 months at a time, and it is only an 8-hour flight back home to see the wife rather than a 26-hour flight that Kyle faces. I certainly would like to think about that more. I'm not ruling it out. Let's put it that way.
So the future may well be bright for you.
Certainly, I would love to be a PDC professional, Premier League type player, and get to play in the majors and on that stage more often, because it makes you want to play on it more. I mean, just playing on it the 4 times that I have, I can't wait to play on it the 5th time.
Lastly, let's talk about darts in America, and where do you see darts in America in 1 year's time and in 10 years' time?
So there's certainly been a shift over the last 3 or 4 years with the CDC guys. I have to admit, without the tour from the CDC, the game itself and my game as well would not be where it is. Like we're still getting bashed around. I mean, they're still putting on a show against us, but we're able to win a match or 2 against these guys right now, and that's a lot of credit to the CDC tour, because and I seen it. I was that player 5 years ago that wasn't anywhere near the player I am today. So we're improving. We're getting there. It's going to take a lot more time, but I mean, everything's moving in the right direction. And with the support of the PDC and stuff, it really legitimizes what the CDC guys are doing, and I hope that they stick around because I do know that we can get there. We just need a bit more fan support, and we need the competitive dart players to show up. But at the same time, the ends have to justify the means because it's a commitment, and we all need to kind of pull together, make that commitment to try to grow the game to what we want it to be.
I've also noticed, a few American players in the dance live and the soft tip as well. Do you think that's going to grow?
I mean, that has continued to grow. We've kind of been competitive on the soft tip side for as long as I can remember. I mean, that goes back to the early days of, Chris White and Ray Carver, and I'm going to leave out a lot of names, but those guys going over there and being competitive from very early on, because we've kind of had soft tip around forever, and the Asian platform kind of made soft tip darts a feasible financial opportunity that even myself, I've flown to Hong Kong and Japan and stuff like that to play in the soft tip side of things as well. Like the money's there to be had, and we're more competitive there. I mean, like, it's a little easier to justify a $2,000 trip to make $15,000 when you can win it. But as of right now, there's no American player that can go win the PDC World Championship. It's going to take some time on the tour to grow, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, the darts live has continued to grow in America, just with soft tip darts as well. But it's still going to take some time. I don't think we're far behind in that at all, though.
And are you going to continue your soft tip journey as well as obviously your steel tip? Are you going to carry on playing the soft tip events?
Yes, I started in soft tip, so it'll always have a place in my heart. I do prefer steel tip more, but yeah, I mean, my starting in soft tip, absolutely. I will always, like, in my dart room now, I actually have a soft tip machine and 2 different steel tip boards because, like, I will play both, and they're both always fun to me. I'll never give up either one.
DJ Sayre talking to us for Live Darts Iceland. Appreciate your time. Very great insight. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.